Okay, so today we're going to finish off looking at some of the summary page stuff we started to look at last week, and we'll take a look at the summary block override scripts and how we can override the individual summary blocks. Last time we looked at the summary pages themselves. This week we'll focus and have a little look on at the blocks themselves, and also we'll take a look at application shortcuts and how you can fire application shortcuts from scripts, be it summary pages or ordinary scripts, and the sorts of things that we can do with application shortcuts. Okay, so we'll start by taking a look at the sp.helper script that I developed and showed you guys last week, which had all of the different summary page options and icons and all that kind of stuff on there. And what we're going to do is just have a look at this test button. So the test page here, we can specify an object type of account. We can specify an object ID, so that's our account ID, and then we can display our display target as well. So we have a couple of options there. If you're just testing, you're likely just going to be using form. And there's a little checkbox down here for force test mode. Okay, so if we run the script here, eventually, what we should see is the summary page that we saw last week, along with some funky colored background. Okay, so test mode basically evaluates the HTML that's generated as a result of your summary page script, and it evaluates that HTML, and if there's any errors in your HTML, then it will display those in a big red box as it comes up. So you can see here we have no issues. It colors the different columns and the different sections that you've created in your script, just to show you that yes, we've got these two columns, the yellow column, the orange column, and the pink column. And we don't have any great big warning messages, so we're okay. So if I were to go back into the script code here and pop that into edit mode and, for instance, take out one of my column begins. Okay, so now we're starting a new section. We're ending a column that we haven't actually started, and we're adding a block to it, so it should throw the layout out quite dramatically. So if I go back to our test mode using the force test mode button on, you can see here that all of a sudden everything's not looking right straight away, and you can see here it's telling us here ending column when not in a column. And then it'll obviously go on to give you further error messages as it tries to go and render the rest of the HTML. So obviously these are not desirable, but without having test mode switched on, you're not necessarily going to know what the issues are with your summary page. So it's a fairly simple concept, as we went through last week anyway. If you start a column, you must end a column. Obviously, you don't end a column until you started one, etc., etc. Same with blocks, same with sections. But still, if you overlook or miss anything, then the first thing to do is to go into when you go to test your summary page, is to go and actually tick on the force test mode flag, which will alert you to that quite quickly, and should give you a nice message to let you know what's happened. Okay, so that's just the last thing I wanted to mention on those summary page scripts themselves. So we'll move on and have a look at the summary block override scripts. So as we mentioned last week, we have the concept of a summary page, which, as you can see here, is this entire script, this entire page, and then summary page blocks, and these would be the individual blocks here, of course. So these summary blocks are all system built blocks. So this, for instance, there's a monitoring block which is shown here, and it's probably shown in a couple of other places throughout the accounts form. And likewise with warnings and summaries and things, they may well be used in more than one place. And they're system built blocks. Just because they're system built doesn't mean that we can't override them. We now have a new script type called a summary block override script, which allows us to go in and actually get our hands on the code that sits behind this block, for instance, and go and either make changes, add things to it, change existing values, or add entirely new sections to that block. So in our summary, we take a look at our summary page standard block override script. So it's a different script type. Obviously last week we were looking at the summary page version 2s. And I've just given mine a code here. In fact, what we'll do is we'll show you an entirely new one. If we go to this script code, and what you see when you paste the template code in here, there's actually no template code. This is a blank canvas for you to add in whichever of those built-in blocks you want to override, and make whatever changes you need. So we don't dump all of the system blocks in there because there are hundreds. But we do, on a right click, give you the opportunity to go in and insert a standard block from the system. So these are all of the system built standard blocks. So again, as we did last week, where we're inserting our key details page, we want the expanded. Basically, expanded means you're going to see the code, and you're going to need to see the code if you want to make changes. And these are all of the system built summaries that we have. You can see under the account there are a number of different standard blocks. To identify the block that you want, you should be able to follow that through from the user interface. So the label that's given to the block in the UI should be the same. Should pretty well match up with the standard block name. So financial status. If we were to try and find that financial status block, we'd go to our expanded. We go to our account because we're looking at the accounts form, and we can see here there's the financial status block, and there's all the code that sits behind that tiny little block of HTML. Okay, some of the script code can be a little bit daunting. Of course, these blocks cater for different account types, different product types, etc., and all the options that go with them. So that's how we add a standard block to our script. And from here, it's just a case of going through and either adding additional information to it or changing some of the existing code. Obviously, it goes without saying, you should be pretty careful when going in and changing any of the existing stuff, as you would be with any built-in script. Okay, so here's one I made earlier, and you can see here, this one we've actually gone for the account summary, which is just our summary at the top here. So a nice simple, or so it seems, simple one. The other reason that these are really useful is for finding your way around the business layer. If you can go to the user interface and know that hey, I want to get that value there, how do I do it? Then you can dump in your financial status block, do a search for contractual, and that'll give you the code for it'll obviously give you the business layer code that renders that contractual balance there. So again, really useful if you're not sure what you're not sure where to find something in the business layer, then these summary block override scripts are really handy. So our account summary block, we've added that into our summary block override script, and then right at the bottom, I've added underneath all of the existing logic, I've added in some account manager user details. So it's going to display the accounts manager at the bottom here. So you'll notice straight away that that doesn't actually appear in this blocks. So what we have to do is actually hook this script up in global settings. So go to global settings. Once that's had a bit of time to think, we can go to the summary pages page, and we can define a script that can override summary page standard blocks. So straight away you'll obviously note that you can only have one of these scripts in place at any one time. So if you've got multiple blocks that you want to apply, then you just have to continually append them to that script. And there you can see our SPBO script. I can OK there. And we'll try an F5, but I suspect we might need to close. Oh yeah, there you go. And that's straight away added our manager user information to the bottom of the block. Okay, so again, a really simple example, it could be that we were going into the financial status block to recalculate the contractual based on some other calculation. But in this case, nice and easy. We've just added that manager user to the existing block. One thing to be aware of again with summary pages in general, as we always say with page sets, is to try, if you're creating your own summary tables and you're adding to existing blocks, just be careful to try and make sure that you maintain a consistent user interface, I guess, a consistent design style with the rest of the system. If all of a sudden you've got you're adding blocks and summary pages that have really leery colors and icons and things, non-standard icons and things all over the place, then it's going to look reasonably out of place in amongst the rest of the summary blocks. So the style of these is again very important. So there we go. That's a reasonably simple example of overriding a standard block. As I said before, you can only have one of these scripts in place at any one time. So if we wanted to add to that script, then we'd have to right click and add our next block underneath. Okay. So again, we'll upload these scripts and everything to the blog hopefully later today, so that you can get your hands on and have a play. But you should be able to go in and I'd certainly encourage you to go in and have a play around with these. And as I said before, a really useful resource for learning your way around the business layer. You can get a bit of an understanding for how some of these items are actually either calculated or displayed. Okay, so that's the summary page standard blocks. Don't forget to set them up in global settings, otherwise you won't see them. And we'll move on to have a quick look at application shortcuts. Now these, I guess, don't really go hand in hand with summary pages. However, you can launch an application shortcut from a summary page via a hyperlink or an icon. So application shortcuts are basically how we pop forms open, we can pop external applications open, we can go straight direct to websites via these. And it's also how we typically initialize things like page sets and widgets. So if we wanted to run a page set, you would typically do it from an application shortcut. Also, we have our shortcuts bar over here. We can actually go in and add an application shortcut, and this is all these are. All we're going to be doing is performing this exact same action via script code, where we can show forms, we can run queues, we can run a page set, open a widget, etc., etc. So to do that via code, we have our IS application shortcut objects, and I've got a little sample script here that again we'll upload to the blog later today. And this will go through and show you some of the application shortcut options that we have. So for instance, we can show forms, we can show URLs, so open up a website inside of FinPower Connect. We can display the address map for clients. We can do all sorts. So if we take a look at our code here, we've declared we'll start with our form show, declared a form show as an IS application shortcut. And the first step, as with any business layer object, is to initialize an instance of that object. And that becomes finbl.create application shortcut. And that's a type of form show. So create application shortcut form show. That has a bunch of different options we can pass. It wants the form ID, which is accounts, and it wants a record ID, being the account ID, and a page we can specify as well. So we don't have to have the page. If we don't have the page, it'll just go to the key details. However, you can specify that it should open that form and land it on a specific page. So once that's been added, we skip down to here and we simply execute the application shortcut. So finbl.execute application shortcut, passing it the application shortcut form show that we've just created up here. So if I run that script, there you go. You can see it's opened our account and it's opened it to the disbursements page as we asked. So again, if you're not sure what forms you want, if you're not sure of the form ID, then you can open up the form the target form. Right click on the tab at the top and go to special and form details, and all that information's in there. That's that form key is what you're looking for. Okay, as well as showing forms, we can also launch we can also launch URLs. So that one, for instance, is simply going to launch Google inside of FinPower Connect. So we can point that directly off to a specific URL. We can show the client map. We can also show external applications. So if I show you the external one, you can see here I've got a couple of constants set up for a file name, which is one I prepared earlier, which is just simply one of our standard Word documents. Again, via code, we execute our application shortcut, which this time is application shortcut external, which is this one here, and all that wants is a file name. You can optionally as well specify a bookmark, so it can actually take you to a specific point in that document if you so wish. So if I load that one, and you won't see because that's just popped up on my other screen, but there we go, let's open that account document in Word. So you just pass it the file name, and it will work out what what type of file it is and which external application it needs to open. Okay, so again, I won't go through too much of the code. There's not a lot of code there, but I won't go through any more detail than I have. We'll upload this to the blog, so get in and have a play. We've also got a page set up in there, which is just the utilities page set we looked at the last couple of weeks. So that in a nutshell is application shortcuts. They're very, very useful. You can run them from summary pages. You can see here, this is launching an application shortcut, as is this, and as are these. But you can also fire them from scripts as well via, as we've seen here, this is just a general script. So you can actually fire those open from pretty much any script type